What's going on, everybody? Welcome in the Vikings Now by Chat Sports. My name is Patrick Siepman, and coming up on today's show, I want to go over 10 trade targets for the Minnesota Vikings as after the 5-0 start, Vikings fans are really hoping that GM Kwesi Adofo-Mensah will make a big-time move at the deadline. Obviously, they did trade for Cam Akers yet again early on this week, but I think a bigger move could be on the table. So if you guys want the Vikings to make a trade, just give me a SKOL down below in the comment section. If you guys could, I'd really appreciate it. Send a message to the Vikings front office to not waste a very special year that we could have. So if you guys want the Vikings to make a trade, just type SKOL down below. Now, in terms of making a trade, the most difficult part with the Vikings is no doubt their limited draft capital for this upcoming year. So they are supposed to get a conditional 7th-round pick from the Jacksonville Jaguars, but as it stands right now, they only have 3 picks, and one of these is a conditional 5th from the Zadarius Smith trade, but they got 1 first-rounder, they got 2 5th-rounders, so not a lot in 2025, but in 2026, they do have a lot on the table to use. Then you also got to talk about the cap space. Like, the Vikings only have $10.98 million left remaining this season. Now, you can obviously restructure some contracts, make an extra dead year. Like, there are ways to work around it. So if there's really a guy the Vikings want and maybe he can't fit into this, $11 million figure, they can work around it in a countless number of ways, especially with guys like Darisaw and Jefferson getting extended this offseason. It really gives them flexibility, heading into the deadline. But Alec Lewis of The Athletic wrote a very, very interesting article talking about the Titans as possible big sellers. And he says, Jeffery Simmons, Harold Landry, L'Jarius Sneed, if any of those guys are available for some kind of price from a draft capital perspective, like if the Vikings are going to go big game hunting, that is a team I'm watching. And here we go. I cannot wait for the NFL trade deadline because this man right here has not let this little smirk he has. I feel like he's always cooking something up. But this guy right here is not going to trade deadline without making a big-time move. Like his first trade deadline, got Hockenson. Last year, he traded away Ezra Cleveland in a shocking move. He also brought in Josh Dobbs. Like, he's not going to let a trade deadline go by without, him trying to make a move to better this roster, not just for this year, but for the future. Now, there is one big-time name that a lot of people have been asking me about, Maxx Crosby. I think he's just out of the Vikings' price range here. I think this would probably cost multiple first-round picks, maybe a starter to land Mad Max. But I'll tell you what, man, if they could somehow get their hands on him, he'd be great for the culture. He would add a sense of, toughness and swagger to this defense, which he is the definition of that, and he's a hell of a football player too. Great in the run game, great in the pass rushing department. He is fantastic. So Mad Max, I think he's a little out of the Vikings' price range here. And do they need an edge necessarily? I think they would probably lean like a Jeffery Simmons a little bit more than him, but he's a name to keep your eye on. Maybe not for the Vikings, but maybe for the Detroit Lions in terms of a team trading for him. But let's dive into it. So I got 5 all-in trade targets, and I got 5 kind of all-in trade targets. But the first one, what about Jaycee Horn? Jaycee Horn, he is one of the better young and up-and cornerbacks in the league. Now, he is 24 years old, and with the Vikings losing all 3 of their starting corners to free agency next season, maybe they tried the trade for Horn, and then he's able to, get extended. Then he's like a true CB1 for the next couple of years. But him in coverage this year has been awesome. He's been targeted 30 times, only has allowed 15 catches for 217 yards. He does have 4 touchdowns allowed, but that's just more red zone mishaps for him. But he's got 6 PBUs and 1 interception. And, this Vikings cornerback room for this year, like, if you add JC in the place of Shaq Griffin, like, you got 3-4 corners that I would love having out there on the field. It's so funny how, this time or in the summer, we're talking about this group as possibly being like the worst group in the NFL. I think it's completely changed. Like, I love the way Byron Murphy, Stephon Gilmore, Shaq Griffin have all played. And if you would just add in another guy like a Jaycee Horn, I think it would be absolutely massive for this team moving forward. So keep your eyes out on him. I think he would be a good choice as well. And then also you got another guy. Like, how about a DJ Reed, star cornerback for the New York Jets? I think he is one of the most underrated players in the National Football League. I thought he did a great job on Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison that game. And DJ Reed, he's a guy who, he's a young guy. You can extend him after this year. And, I just said it, but he is the most underrated cornerback in the National Football League. Like, I think playing next to a guy like Sauce, he gets all the attention, and I understand that. But what I saw, and especially in that London game, this man's fantastic. He can run step for step with some of the fastest wide receivers in the league. He plays with a sense of swagger, plays with a sense of aggression that I love at the cornerback position, and his PFF grades are absolutely ridiculous. Like 86.6 overall, run defense, 73.7. But his coverage grade this year is a staggering 87.4. I'm not sure if the Jets would move off him, considering they just traded for Devontae Adams, but it's definitely a name to keep your eyes on. Now let's get it to the big fella in the middle. I know Giants fans watching this video are going to kill me, but I got to put Dexter Lawrence on this list. Now, I think it is extremely, extremely unlikely that New York ends up trading Sexy Dexy. But if he, for whatever reason, becomes available, the Vikings should send multiple first-round picks to go get number 97. He's 26 years old, playing some of the best football of his career, and this man is just a unit. Like, 7 sacks on the year, 24 pressures, 5 TFLs. He can get it done in the run game and the pass rush game. He is truly one of the best players, not just defensively in the league, but in the entire league. Like, the impact he has on the football field is massive. And, the Vikings would be able to, bring him in this season. You don't have to restructure about $4 million this year, but that's very, very doable. But then his salary, $24 million in 25, 27 in 26, then 26 in 27. That's a steal of a deal for one of the best players in the National Football League. If he becomes available, he is my all-in trade target. But again, very, very unlikely he gets dealt anywhere at the trade deadline. But number 4 for me, I think this is a more obvious one, or more likely one, I should say, is Jeffery Simmons of the Tennessee Titans. Now, Jeffery Simmons, his contract for this year is a little more than Dexter Lawrence at $21 million. But again, you guys can the Vikings should be able to make that work by just restructuring a couple deals. And, this is a guy who's been dominant, very similar to Dexter Lawrence. He can get it done in the pass rush game. He can get it done in the run defense game. This is a guy I would be all in on. If I had to pick one player where it's like, assuming Kwesi wants to go all in on this year, this is the guy that's most likely. It is Jeffery Simmons. Do not be shocked if the Vikings try to make a big-time news for him. I would absolutely love it. But let's get it to a cornerback here, a veteran. What about Jaylen Ramsey? Now, Jaylen Ramsey, I don't need to say much about him. You guys know who he is. He's still playing elite football this year with the Miami Dolphins. He did just get extended before this offseason, so he'll be locked up for the next couple of years. And again, with the Vikings losing these guys in free agency, I could see Kwesi almost viewing this deadline as a position, or to help him position this team for the future at that secondary. Jaylen Ramsey's that guy. Like, the numbers don't lie. 18 pass breakups in 2022 with the Rams. He was one of the best corners in the National Football League. So those are my 5 all-in trade targets. We'll get the 5 more here in a second. You guys just got to give me a name. Name a player the Vikings should trade for at the NFL trade deadline. Who is it? Drop their name down below in the comment section. Now, we'll get to more names here in a second, but first, I do want to tell you guys about today's presenting sponsor, and that is PrizePicks. If you guys download the PrizePicks app today and sign up today, you guys will get $50 instantly when you play just $5. And the best part is you don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Now, what is PrizePicks? PrizePicks is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in award winnings, PrizePicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. All you do is pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long on PrizePicks. And for your Minnesota Timberwolves fans, I actually have a deal going on right now for our guy Anthony Edwards, where if he just scores 1 point on opening night next Tuesday versus the Los Angeles Lakers, you guys get a free win. So sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. But shout out to PrizePicks for sponsoring today's show. PrizePicks, run your game. Got that link for you guys in the comments and description of today's show. Let's kick it to the offensive line. How about a guy like Wyatt Teller? Now, this is a move where I think, let's just say Ed Ingram is a disaster this weekend, and maybe they don't have faith in Dalton Risner coming back from that back injury. Maybe they look at the Cleveland Browns, who already traded Amari Cooper. Clearly, there is some sort of a fire sale going on there, and this is one of the better right guards in the league. Now, the PFF grades, he is having a downish year for his standard, but I think a lot of this just has to do with the Browns just being a terrible offense. So none of their guys can be graded well, but 67.2 overall, 63.6 in the run block, and 65.5 in the run block department. But, the Vikings offensive line, I think you got 3 elite players in Brandell, Darrisaw, and O'Neal. you just got to shore up that interior. And I think Garrett Bradbury would look a whole lot better if he had a guy like, Wyatt Teller next to him at the right guard spot. I think that could be a huge upgrade, and we'll also get more out of Bradbury. But, again, unlikely. But we move on to Chase Young, edge rusher of the New Orleans Saints. Now, I don't necessarily think the Vikings need an edge rusher. I think they're good there, unless it's like an all-in move on like a true blue chipper where you're getting a guy like a Max Crosby. Obviously, I think that's unlikely, or a Myles Garrett or something like that, where you would have Myles Garrett and Jonathan Grenard working Van Ginkel, Patrick Jones, Dallas Turner. The Vikings would have the best edge group in the National Football League. But for just a minuscule move, Chase Young kind of out on that. But we kick it to Jonathan Jones here, veteran corner for the New England Patriots. This is a guy I love. Very smart football player, very versatile football player. And I think the Vikings could kind of get him for, a little bit of a steal. I think this would probably take a 5th-round pick to get him, maybe a 3rd. Maybe I'm just, not valuing, Jonathan Jones as much, but this is how he grades out PFF-wise: 63.3 overall, run defense at 41, pass rush at 60, coverage at 67.4. I like this move, but again, the Vikings are going to have to do something with the cornerback room, whether it's this trade deadline or during free agency this next spring. But kick it to Calais Campbell here. This is a guy I would love. Maybe the Dolphins, maybe they're viewing they can't necessarily go on a playoff run like they hope so, but I think Calais Campbell is going to be an absolute monster for a team if he gets traded there. This is a guy who's going to just come in, play rotational reps. He's not going to, be all 3 down type of defensive lineman, but I think Campbell, I really, really do believe in him. I think he's got a lot left in the tank, even though he is 37, 38 years old, but he has been very, very productive. I mean, even this year, man, he's got 4 TFLs and 2 sacks in 5 games for a bad Miami Dolphins team. You bring him to Minnesota, he can play on the interior, he can play on the outside, he can play everywhere. I'd be all in on it. Now, this is a guy who I think would be a depth piece for the Vikings, and maybe if like Jerry Tillery, Harrison Phillips, he's kind of on the same level of those players. But what about Sebastian Joseph Day? I am a big fan of this guy, and I really do believe he has a lot of good football left in the tank here. He has 2 sacks on the season, 14 tackles, 3 TFLs, but this is just a guy where it's like Vikings would just have more depth at the defensive line. I don't think it's a blue chipper where it's a needle mover, but again, maybe toss the Titans a 5th, 3rd, 4th-round pick, whatever it may be, because they're going to be fire sailing a lot of their players here, hopefully at the deadline. So I definitely call about SJD. But if you guys made it to the end of today's show, just give me a SKOL down below in the comments section. I'd really appreciate it. And also shout out to all of you guys who watch this entire thing. That is awesome. And thank you guys so much. But, if you guys do want to give me a follow on Twitter, that's the handle right there, @PatSieps. Give me a follow over there. I'll give you guys a follow right back. And as always, SKOL Vikes.